Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you a twofer, or a threefer maybe, I don't know. I'm going to be reviewing the new release from Gucci, part of the Gucci Bloom family. We are going to be reviewing the new Gucci Bloom Eau de Toilette, and I'm also going to be comparing it to both the original Gucci Bloom and the flanker Gocce di Fiori, and this is an Eau de Toilette. And I wanted to compare it to these two specifically because I find that if you own this one or this one, you might not need this one. Or I think that these are the most similar, and these are the ones that I think if you are interested in purchasing the new fragrance, you may or may not need to add this to your collection if you have one of these. So let's get into the video. Comparison will be at the end, the review will be at the beginning. The most important part is I purchased this. So this was not sent to me to review, and the two other fragrances were not sent to me to review. I purchased all of these. I am also a huge fan of the Gucci Bloom fragrance line. So if you want to know my thoughts on these fragrances or any of the other Gucci Bloom families, I will link all of the reviews below if you are so inclined to know my thoughts. So first things first, Gucci Bloom Eau de Toilette, the notes in this fragrance. This is designed to be a lighter, more fresh version of Gucci Bloom. This has top notes of Neroli, Mandarine, and lemon. At the heart, you have orange blossom, jasmine, tuberose, and the Rangoon creeper. That is kind of like one of the florals that is really center stage in the heart and soul of the Gucci Bloom formula. And at the base, you have sandalwood and musk. Now, I would say that the main difference to this fragrance most definitely is that neroli. Now, most obviously, the biggest difference is going to be the citruses, specifically the white floral neroli. Neroli has that beautiful, kind of really deep, sweet, almost candy-like floral scent to it. And I like that neroli is a little bit deeper than an orange blossom, and I think that that kind of helps with anchoring the citruses, making it not too sweet, not too candy-like. It works a little bit as brighter and less sweeter with these fragrances. Sometimes super sweet white florals can kind of run away from you, can be a little bit too heavy, a little bit too much. With white florals, especially with tuberose, there needs to be a balance. The really beautiful thing about Gucci Bloom, in my opinion, was its minimalism and its balance, especially focusing on tuberose, making it something that smelled timeless, but also mature and also youthful, but also very wearable. Tuberose can be one of those white florals that can be a little bit too much for some people, and I think Gucci Bloom is one of those fragrances that a lot of people really enjoyed because it kind of opened their eyes to the beauties of a very sophisticated but very wearable white floral fragrance, specifically a tuberose. Now, I have been enjoying this fragrance. I have not had it for a very long time, but I've worn it long enough to be able to tell you about how it develops on the skin and its longevity. So the first thing first, when you wear this, you are going to smell that Bloom DNA like you smell in most of the Gucci Bloom fragrances, but it does have way more of a brightness to it and a bit of a juiciness from the citruses and the neroli. The neroli definitely adds a nice, beautiful softness and a sweetness to the opening rather than what you would normally get from the tuberose and the jasmine. It doesn't last too long, but it does lighten this a little bit, and it makes it a little bit more effervescent and billowy on the skin. I won't say that it lasts as long as I would like on the skin in regards to the neroli, specifically the citruses, but it lasts long enough to be a very pleasant experience. I think that this fragrance definitely has a place within the Bloom family, and we'll get into that. But as a standalone fragrance within a flanker, within a very well-established brand, I find this to be the type of flanker that is something that you get if the original doesn't work for you, not as a companion to the original. And we will get into that. I like how this smells really beautiful, really light. It performs nicely on the skin in regards to you get the beautiful white florals, you get a slight muskiness, and you get some beautiful citruses in there as well. If you are familiar with the Bloom DNA, you're going to like this fragrance. It does not smell different than a Gucci Bloom perfume, the Eau de Parfum. It has a slight difference in the opening with the citruses, specifically the white floral neroli aspect to it, and it does last long enough to be something pleasant that you can enjoy, but it's not something that lasts long enough for it to be something that I think makes it a standalone fragrance that you need to purchase over an additional scent, like as an addition to the family. I do like the fragrance, but when we get into comparing it to the other fragrances, I'll explain what I mean. Longevity for this fragrance on my skin is actually really good. It lasts 6 to 8 hours on my skin. I will say that the projection and sillage is minimal. I get probably about a little bit past arm's length. I don't think this is going to be a beast of a fragrance. I'm comparing it by having walked around people I know in my house that don't like fragrances, specifically white florals, and if they don't even make a mention of it, I know that it's a pretty discreet, very more personal fragrance. So this isn't going to be the type of fragrance that's going to fill a room or make an impression, but if you like discreet fragrances, and a lot of people prefer discreet fragrances if you're working in a personal environment, and some people just don't want loud fragrances, and a Bloom fragrance is a little bit too loud for you, this would be a great fragrance as well. So in regards to longevity, it doesn't perform too bad, pretty good, 6 to 8 hours. But when it comes down to projection and sillage, it's not as powerful as some of the others from the house. So if that is something that you're looking for, this might not be the one for you. At the end of the day, I think it's a really beautiful fragrance. I'm happy to have it in my collection as a fragrance collector, but let's get into the comparison. Remember when Bloom came out and I smelled it, I was wowed by this fragrance. Not everybody likes this scent. This isn't a super groundbreaking, super creative composition, but the way that it was composed and came together really was a love letter for white floral lovers, and is also a fantastic way to bring people into white flowers. I know that specifically very heavy, very dense, very beautifully mature white floral fragrances for some people can be challenging and intimidating. A lot of people have very real scent memories and experiences with very dated white flowers. Jasmine, Tuberose, gardenia, they have memories of being at churches, being in meetings, being in restaurants, being in hot cars with family members and friends, and just not being able to escape and like being suffocated. And so white florals, it's not that they themselves are bad, it's just a lot of people have had very real experiences where people have oversprayed very heavy, very musky, very powerful, very heady white floral fragrances. White florals, specifically tuberose, have a beautiful way to smell a variety of different ways. They can smell musky, they can smell green, they can smell bright, they can smell creamy, they can smell indolic, almost kind of like slightly overripe, and just really gorgeous. Tuberose is just fantastic. It's beautiful. And when done correctly, it is one of the most beautiful notes on the skin, especially if you want something that I would consider, and this is my personal opinion, like sophisticated and elegant and exotic. There's something exotic about a tuberose fragrance that's also very approachable. It's very easy to understand a beautiful white flower, but there's something innately distinctive about the tuberose that I find to be effortlessly beautiful and unique. And what I loved about Gucci Bloom is this beautiful white floral fragrance that both captured its elegance and maturity, but didn't turn away people that wanted something a little bit more modern and easy. Not everybody liked it, that's totally acceptable, but I think that if people wanted to start falling in love with these more richer, denser and gorgeous white floral fragrances, I think Gucci Bloom is one of the fragrances that really brought a lot of people who were more interested in more minimalistic modern perfumery and made them fall in love with an absolutely beautiful note in perfumery or style of perfumery, or theme in perfumery, which is very decadent white flowers, which can smell a variety of different ways. And Bloom did it effortlessly. I love the line of fragrances. There are definitely way more successful flankers out there. Now, when Gocce di Fiori came out, I really liked this one. This was a more modern, more minimalistic, in my opinion, take on Bloom. It was more watery, it was more translucent on the skin. If you're one of those people that enjoys those more watery, aromatic, floral fragrances, that's a little bit lighter and discreet, but still really beautiful on the skin, Gocce di Fiori had that beautiful kind of, and I say watery flower, effervescent, just beautiful translusivity. That's not a word. It's not a word. I know it's not a word. On the skin, it was gorgeous. And it was unique enough to where you could have it as a different companion fragrance to Gucci Bloom. Now, the thing is like with flankers, there's a variety of different flanker styles out there, and I'm probably going to do a video talking about my opinions on flankers. So you have the style of flankers where it's something that it's a completely different concentration. So, you have Sauvage Parfum, Sauvage Extrait, Sauvage Eau de Toilette, Sauvage Cologne. I'm just naming out different styles. I'm not saying that Sauvage has all those. And then you might have, say, like Angel Nova, Angel Eau Sucrée, Angel Fruity Fair. And then you might have the different ones where it's slightly different. So I would say the ones where it's a concentration change, I would expect it to smell very similar, but there's something about it that's different. Either there's something about it that smells more intense, maybe richer, more decadent. So if it's a fruity fragrance that maybe has sandalwood or vanilla in there to kind of add a little bit of roundness to it. If it's an intense, maybe amp up one of the fruits in the vanilla. If it's supposed to be a lighter version of it, something musky and citrusy and bright. Or if it's going to be something along the lines of a DNA shift, I think Victor and Wolf Flower Bomb does it great with their different types of flankers. And Gucci Bloom has done it fantastic. So when they released Gocce di Fiori, I thought as an Eau de Toilette, this was going to be their Eau de Toilette version of, their fragrance. So when I heard about this guy, I was interested to see how they were going to kind of market this as another member of the flanker family. Because to be perfectly honest, they've been really successful, in my opinion, with most of their flankers. I've enjoyed them. So first things first, I do really love this fragrance. There are things about it that I would change. I would prefer if the Neroli was it was a little bit louder on the skin. I wish it was a little bit more present and lasted longer. I would say the Neroli lasts on the skin, on my skin, for about 2 to 3 hours. And if you think about that, hey, that's like half the lifespan of the skin, but it's not super up in front most of that time. For the first 45 minutes to an hour, you can smell it along with this really beautiful Bloom DNA, and then it softens with the other citruses in the background. You can pick it up, but it's not front and center. And I think if it was more front and center, this would be a super successful flanker, in my opinion. But because the Neroli is a little bit more in the background after less than an hour, and then it fades away less than half the lifespan of the fragrance, I feel a little cheated, even though I do really like the fragrance. And the reason why I'm saying that is I find this fragrance to be more of what I would consider a Gucci Eau de Toilette translation than the Gucci Eau de Toilette here. I like the idea that they did do something slightly different with the addition of these florals and citruses, and it does smell different enough for the most part. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with this fragrance at all. And I do like how it does smell if you close your eyes after the dry down. For the most part, these are gonna smell not like identical twins, but maybe like fraternal twins. They're gonna smell very close. So what I'm trying to say is these smell very similar. This one definitely smells a little bit more different than these two. What I'm trying to say is you do not need all of these in your collection. So What I would say is if you already have Gucci Bloom and this works for you and you want something like a lighter, more fresher interpretation, Gocce di Fiori is excellent. That's what I would personally say, is that if you already own this one and you already own this one, you don't need the Eau de Toilette, personally. Just based on the fact that the real difference is the bright citrusy addition of like the Neroli in there, and it's beautiful and I love it. It doesn't last long enough and it's not present enough on the skin to make much of a difference that I think it's worth the investment. Now, if you wanted to get like a little 1 ounce bottle or something, all right. If you wanted to add it to your collection as a collecting aspect of it, that's why I did it. But I know not everybody wants to do that, has the space to do that, cares to do that. So my thought is if you had these two, you don't need the Eau de Toilette. If you had just Gocce di Fiori, if you tried Gucci Bloom and it was too heavy, it was too rich, a little bit too mature for you, because I know some people thought it was a little bit too mature for their skin. And I think that had to do because it was a little bit heavy, a little bit rich, I would say, on the skin, a little bit heavy, heady. I think that if you have this and you liked Gocce di Fiori and you wanted to try the Eau de Toilette, this is it's lighter on the skin. And so sometimes with white florals, they can kind of feel like a heavy blanket, and sometimes people want a light cotton throw. So if you're the type of person where Gucci Bloom was one of those like heavy blankets and you liked the way it felt, but it was a little bit too suffocating. The white florals were a little bit too heavy, a little bit too oppressive, but you liked the general composition, but it was a little bit too much for you or your environment. And you have this fragrance and you liked it, but you really kind of wanted the magic of the original Bloom, then I would say try the Eau de Toilette, because this is going to smell near identical, at least after the Neroli kind of shies away from the limelight, as the Gucci Bloom, more so than Gocce di Fiori, personally. Now, you can just have this and kind of have the best of both worlds if you don't have any of them. And you could also completely disagree with everything that I say. At the end of the day, you can purchase whatever you want, but I don't think you need all three. I think you could be perfectly happy with just one, but if you wanted to have a little bit of variety in your fragrance wardrobe and you really enjoyed the Gucci Bloom line, I think that, to be perfectly honest, you could probably get away with 2 out of these 3. I think ultimately it's going to end up with, what are your thoughts on the original Bloom? Do you like the way this smells? Do you wish there was something a little bit brighter about it, a little bit lighter about it? I think that if Bloom hit you in all the right spots, but there was something about your environment or something about the formula that didn't work well on your skin, it was a little bit too heavy, a little bit too oppressive, a little bit too overpowering, a little bit too suffocating, even though you enjoyed it, it was a little bit too much, I think the Eau de Toilette would be an excellent, excellent try for you guys. However, if you have Gucci Bloom already and you think, Eau de Toilette, Neroli, that sounds fantastic, I really don't think you need to spend the money on it. Or if you want to add it to your collection as a collector, maybe get the smallest bottle, because it really smells similar enough to the original Bloom that I don't think it needs to be something that you have a big old bottle of. Now for me, I'll give you an example of the other reason why I bought a big bottle of this. And this is how I wear fragrances that are different concentrations that smell near similar. And this is the only other recommendations that I will kind of make for maybe possibly adding this to your collection. And again, this is completely up to your ideals. I love to wear fragrances year-round sometimes. Sometimes compositions are something I don't care if it's too hot or too cold, but sometimes the formulas just don't work. So when there's a formula change and it smells near similar, when the weather and the humidity permits me to wear this one, I will wear this one. But when it gets too hot or too heavy, I obviously just got this, so I can't say I'd wear this, but in situations where it's a formula change, I will wear a fragrance like this. So like Jasmine Rouge is a great example. Other fragrances that have a near similar fragrance where the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette smell near cousins or near twins. That's what I would do. So if you live in an area that the seasons change so much and certain heavy formulas, Eau de Parfums, white florals, or things like that, the compositions are too heavy to wear certain times of year and you want to wear it year round, then I would say get this. But at the end of the day, I really don't think you need to have all 3 of these. So if you have 2 of these already and you were thinking about getting one of the other ones, I don't think it's necessary. But I do actually enjoy the Eau de Toilette from Gucci, the new Bloom. I just wish the Neroli lasted longer. I've only been wearing it for less than 24 hours, but I do have enough experience with the Gucci Bloom fragrances and their Eau de Toilette formulas and things like that to kind of give you an idea about how it's going to develop on the skin. So that's my thoughts. If my opinion changes, I'll let you know. I think this is beautiful. I have no problems purchasing it. I really like it, but just as a recommendation, I don't think you need it if you have like one of these already. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think. Have you had the opportunity to try this fragrance? Do you agree with what I think? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.